After 21 films, a decade of cinema trips, and an ever-growing Blu-ray collection, we arrived at the Endgame. Endgame! It was time to close the first book in what I'd argue is the most compelling and unique narrative in cinema. Before we get started, and because I can already feel you reaching for the dislike button based off the title alone, I loved this film. I was there release day as I have been for many MCU installments, and I thought this was a really satisfying conclusion to my favourite fictional universe.
There were so many fantastic moments that I adored, including Cap. Oh, I should probably say spoilers for Avengers Endgame, I guess? I don't know, are we still doing that? Probably not. I mean, you've had like 6 months, but there might be some people who haven't seen it. So there were so many fantastic moments that I adored, including Cap lifting Mjolnir, Thor trying to explain the ether, and Morgan asking for cheeseburgers, which were some of my favourites. And most emotional? I'm looking at you, cheeseburgers? Overall, I think the writers and directors did a really great job, and I haven't spoken to a single person thus far who actually hated the movie. But did I like it as much as Infinity War? Is it going to be my new favourite MCU film? I don't think so. Infinity War did such an incredible job, weaving together a cohesive narrative around Thanos. It split our favourite characters off into unique groupings, and it gave everybody a chance to shine. Although not perfect, I really struggled to find any major points that I really disliked about Infinity War. But I do have a few gripes with Endgame, and the problem I want to talk about today is the Hulk. The Hulk and Bruce Banner have been a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe for nearly as long as Tony Stark. Released in June 2008, just a month and a bit after Iron Man, the Incredible Hulk would serve as the first of 6 MCU appearances for Banner and his big green counterpart, not including his cameos at the end of Iron Man 3, and not including his cameo at the end of Captain Marvel. 6 films is a long time for a character to change and develop. Hell, Tony Stark's decade of character development was so drastic that it took a half-hour video for me just to hit the key points alone. No, really, I actually did that. Please check it out, there's a link on the screen and in the description, thank you. So let's take a little stroll down memory lane. Let's have a really quick Banner-Hulk relationship recap. In the Incredible Hulk film, Banner was trying to keep the Hulk at bay, but the film ends with Banner accepting that the Hulk is a part of him, and alludes to the idea that he's trying to have some control over the Hulk, or at the very least, trying to learn how to trigger the transformation himself. In the Avengers, we see that Banner is afraid to let the Hulk loose, but he can at the very least trigger the transformation on cue, leading to a more docile version of the Hulk that can actually distinguish a friend from a foe. Age of Ultron follows these ideas too, with Banner being able to let the Hulk out when needed, and Natasha being able to put him back in the box when the mission is complete. A romance begins to blossom between Banner and Natasha, with Hulk clearly having a level of adoration for her too. At the end of the film, Hulk decides he wants some time away from a humanity that fears him, and doesn't appreciate what he does. This is a decision that he makes all alone, without any input from Bruce. We learn in Thor Ragnarok that he ends up on Sakaar, and has a great time doing exactly what he does best: smashing. He's finally in an environment where he's loved and cheered for being the Hulk, and Hulk has become the primary personality at this point, with Banner essentially in a long sleep. Infinity War begins with Hulk being beaten by Thanos, and being sent back to Earth. From the point that they reach Earth, Hulk refuses to help the cause. He and Banner have never been further apart. Bruce, for the first time, has to be the one leading in the battlefield, as Hulk refuses to be his, or the Earth's, saviour. Now to me this was a really interesting change of dynamic. Ragnarok teased with the idea that Hulk and Banner were at odds with each other, but they were forced to both play a role to assist Thor. In Infinity War, Hulk has pieced out, he wants no part of any fight after the opening scene, and refuses Banner's multiple requests for help. There has never been a bigger divide between these two personalities than there was at the end of Infinity War. So, I was expecting some big resolution to this, as I'm sure plenty of people were. I thought perhaps there'd be a moment where Natasha is in trouble and about to die, and Bruce is powerless to save her. Seeing that without his intervention, she's a goner, Hulk finally allows Bruce to transform and save her. Natasha could have acted as the common interest between both entities that made them realise they were more similar than either of them thought. Hulk could have seen that Nat's appreciation for being saved, and Banner's appreciation for finally coming out and saving her, was enough for him to grow as a character and say, hey, I don't need all of Earth's approval, the approval of the Avengers is enough. But that's not what we got. Endgame does its 5-year time skip, and it's all just been taken care of off screen. Hulk and Bruce manage to come to terms with each other and supposedly merge personalities as a full-time gig, and we, the audience invested in their development, get to see none of that. Now, this film has a lot going on, even with the snap reducing the initial cast, and Thanos not returning as a real threat until the last act of the film. There's a lot of balls that Marvel had to juggle here, and they may have decided that taking the time to resolve the Hulk-Banner divide in Endgame would have been one thing too many. But to me, a long-time viewer who was thoroughly engaged with this universe and these characters, this is disappointing. Marvel has always had these cool, audience-gasping moments, and the gratuitous extended fight scenes in their movies, but these have always felt earned because of the development we've seen these characters go through, This universe wouldn't keep pulling in the megabucks if the films were only one or the other. But that's what this feels like. It feels like we watched the Avengers film. We saw the characters meet, the problem present itself, and the team falling further and further apart, and then 5 years later. Hey, remember when we beat Loki? It's the build-up without the payoff. You know the payoff happened, but you weren't there to see it. Now, with the benefit of having seen the film, here's how I personally would have done it. Why should you listen to my fanfiction? Well, you probably shouldn't, but you're still listening to me at this point, so snap happens. Captain Marvel saves Tony, Thanos is killed, and the stones have been destroyed. 5 years later. The Hulk hasn't been seen for 5 years. Bruce is still with the Avengers, and he can feel that he's still there. He can feel the rage inside. But the universal-wide depression from the Avengers' failings never really leads to a situation where Hulk is needed, let alone willing to help. The time heist goes ahead as planned, and Banner goes to the Sanctum Sanctorum as Bruce Banner. His conversation with the Ancient One goes mostly the same, except this time, when Bruce pleads that he doesn't have time for a long talk, and she knocks his astral form out to talk at length, a second astral form is also knocked out. Hulk and Banner have both functioned up to this point in the MCU as two separate identities, so why not have the two astral forms finally look each other in the eye and hash it out? The Ancient One acts as a mediator, as they both put forward their cases. Hulk feels unappreciated. Banner is puny and worthless. You get it. After a while, they both look down upon the Battle of New York and see Nat from 2012 in trouble. Who saves her? The 2012 Hulk. They both realise what they're missing out on, and through conversation and assistance from the Ancient One, they agree to come together to complete the mission. Professor Hulk is born in that moment. This would not only give us, the audience, an explanation for the merging and a resolution to the problem we've been following, but it would also give us a chance to see the other characters' reactions to this extremely vast change for the first time. In Endgame, we got to see Scott's reaction, but from a narrative standpoint, that was only to explain the situation to the audience. Scott and Hulk had no prior relationship, so there's no real payoff here. Now, on the whole, I like the character. I do wish there was a little more Hulk in his personality. He seems very Banner driven, but I like the character. I just wish we'd seen a little more when it came to his creation. I do wonder where Marvel will go next with the Hulk. His character arc throughout the entire first 3 phases of the MCU has been dominated by the two personalities butting heads, and the will they, won't they relationship with Natasha.
Now, both of these story threads have been thrown off a cliff. One of them literally. So I guess this either relegates Professor Hulk to a two-dimensional side character in the team-up movies, or he's a character that's about to be given entirely new goals, motives, and objectives. I know which of these two options I'd like to see played out, but given the problems Marvel has with Hulk's movie use, and how unlikely it is for him to star in any of his own films, I also know which option is more likely. And if you're at home desperately hoping that Hulk becomes an unmotivated side character, boy have I got some good news for you.